I'ma need that real grown kind of energy. Do you know? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm so happy you're joining me. I want to share with you a story coming out of New York. I had said years ago that I wanted to see more Black people start to sue. We're not really known for suing. Instead of the crying all the time on TikTok and on here about racism and discrimination from a company and all of that, and there's nothing wrong with expressing yourself, but hit them in their pockets. It's time to start suing. Other people have been suing for decades, and a lot of us tend to let things slide and companies get away with doing things. Now, Robin Europe, and I know ironically her last name is Europe, she sued Equinox for discrimination for racism. She was working for them as a trainer. She got fired, and the courts were able to prove it was racism, and she recently won $11.25 million. Yes, so Robin is the woman on the left in the green sweater. So let me share with you her story and what happened. So Robin is the woman right there in the green sweater on the left. So let me share with you her story on what happened. Okay, Black fitness professional sued Equinox and the jury awards her with millions. New York City fitness professional Robin Europe, as you can see on the left, she worked at Equinox Gym on Manhattan's Upper East Side for less than a year. But she claims her time there was so stressful that it affected her health. And when she was ultimately fired, she argued it had nothing to do with her performance. And I know some people might be surprised, right? Manhattan, New York City. New York City is a melting pot. New York City is diverse, but New York City is also very segregated. New York City, because it's full of people from different countries, they come from countries where they're already racist, and they're thrown in an environment full of all different types of people around them. Now, people who have lived in New York for years, a number of New York people get along, very cultured, get along, friendships, used to each other because you've been raised around each other forever. But there are also a number of people new to the city from the South in the U.S., from other countries again. And even if they are third generation, I mean, if their parents were racist and grandparents, a lot of it is passed down, and just tension sometimes between cultures and all of that. That's just a fact. So don't think just because New York City has so much diversity that racism doesn't go on. Yes, it does all throughout the city. It might not be as hardcore all the time as what you see in the South, but trust me, it does exist.
All right, Black women. So I just wanted to give some clarity and some truth to this video, because I hate when people talk about my city. They don't know what they're talking about. They lie and they just make it up as they go along. All right, so Cerebral is talking about the suit that Miss Europe won in reference to her working at a really hoity-toity, extremely racist gym called Equinox. Equinox is here in New York City, both downstate and upstate. It's one of those kind of exclusive gyms. It's not that you can't get into it, but it's pretty pricey a month. It comes with everything: 24-hour access, saunas, swimming pools, all that type of stuff, personal trainers. You have to ID yourself to get in, and they don't just let anybody from off the street walk in. I'm trying to think of that building. The Gray Bar. The most famous Equinox gym is in a landmark building in Manhattan called the Gray Bar Building, right? It's a building with a lot of attorneys and stuff in it, and you look it up on Google, you'll see the history of why it's called the Gray Bar Building. Anyway, to get to it, that woman, that Black woman, she sued them because they were just stressing her out. You know how the microaggressions of white women and white people in general affect Black women, because these people are very passive aggressive. They're nasty. They do things that are escalating to make people want to hurt them. They create scenarios. They sabotage people, and then there's other white women around them that will, stick up for their lives and also participate in it. to convince the police and others or anybody investigating the situation that these white people were in the right and you're in the wrong when they were absolutely the primary aggressor. Okay, so the part I wanted to speak to was she's always talking about New York City as if she knows what she's talking about, and she doesn't. New York City is not a segregated city, okay? It is a racially prejudiced city based off of anti-blackness, period, across the board. There's no such thing as an individual person being a racist, but racist systems run all throughout New York City. That's the reason why poor people or people in general who are not white and rich are not allowed to have guns here, even though we have been allowed to have guns. We're still fighting in court for the mayor and the governor to get up off the necks of the everyday poor person and actually let us exercise our rights to be armed in the streets. They're still trying to block us from having that. In saying that, you have to understand the power structure here. So the way she's trying to make it seem as if, like all people who don't know anything about New York City do, is to make it seem like Manhattan is the epicenter of New York City. It is not. It is just the Manhattan. It's just the area of Manhattan where the majority of white people and people with a little bit of money and celebrities and artists and etc. tend to live. It's not like they don't live in other boroughs of New York, because they do, but the majority of them live in Manhattan. And since you have Broadway and things like that, people tend to want to believe that that place represents New York City when it actually doesn't. Okay? So when she's saying this nonsense about how the city is segregated, nothing could be further from the truth. But the city is seriously racially prejudiced, right? And very bigoted. So in New York City, Manhattan, and all the rest of the four boroughs, in every neighborhood, you have black people and every other person living literally on the same block, in the apartment buildings, living in each apartment alongside of each other. Like, as a matter of fact, in my building here on the floor I live on, there are only, how many black families here now? 2 black families over the 20-something years that I have owned this apartment, right? So people have come and go, but there are an influx of Southeastern Europeans that have moved into this building, and most recently, a whole bunch of Asian people, right? So it's only myself and one other woman on this floor that is African American or ADOS. Everybody else is some type of Asian, Southeastern European, and 2 families of Hispanics. Everybody else is like, they're Southeastern and African, like all over Africa, not just black Africans, because I think we have some Moroccans on this floor. Or, yeah, is it Morocco they come from? I know it's North Africa. So wherever those people come from, but I strongly believe it's Morocco from the food that I smell come out their apartment. And their style of dress, their indigenous clothing looks like Moroccan clothes. Even I don't speak to them, so I don't know. But for her to be saying, like, it's segregated, she don't know what she's talking about. There's not any place down here that is segregated, right? Even the places in every borough where we have private streets and private communities, as long as you can afford to live there, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, whoever, you're going to live there. And even when they have gentrified the area, it's usually an influx of white people that encroach upon the indigenous people, whether they be Hispanic, Asian, black, or other. So again, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just talking out her ass to make it seem impressive, like she knows stuff that she doesn't. What else was she talking about? Oh, and so the environment I wanted to speak to about this lady. The thing, Naya, get out of this kitchen and do not try to eat my food. Are you crazy? So, this girl is trying to eat out of my plate. She knows she's trying to die tonight. So, the thing is with the white women here in New York City, where I live, that I can speak of because I know what I'm talking about, has nothing to do with the shit she's talking about. What it has to do with is the fact that this is a city where, when you want to talk about the borough of Manhattan, this is the financial epicenter of the world, right? So you have all types of men in Manhattan making $2 an hour to $250,000, maybe not an hour, but a year and more, right? And $500,000 and over $1 million. So you have to think about things in terms of how stuff plays out. You have this black woman who has an incredible physique. She's black, first of all. So if you know, you know. There's not no other woman in this world that can physically compare to black women when it comes to our bodies, period. I don't give a fuck what black males say or anybody else. We are the blueprint for women, right? We're the first women. So when we look good and we build our bodies up and we stay in shape, we look good from young age to extremely old age, regardless. And it doesn't matter who else from another group can compare to you, they will never be able to rival you because they're not built the way we built, period. So in saying that, you got to understand the dynamics of the situation. She's a nice looking young black woman. She got a body that's built for days because she's a trainer. And those men that go to Equinox lunchtime, after work, before work, because this is how rich men in New York City get down with their training. I told you all about this. You want to meet them, that's the places you go to. You also go where they go to their sports gyms and play racquetball, croquet, and all the rest of that shit. You go hang out there. And literally in New York, you could sit down and be a free spectator or ticketed spectator. It's different times for different events. And because you have that type of environment down here, and men are typically very competitive when it comes to sports, working out their bodies and trying to be peacocking for women, this is what prompted this issue with Miss Europe. Because her body's bad. She's hanging around a lot of hating ass non-black women, mostly Becky's, who are upset with the fact that this woman is rock hard and her body is dynamite. She's young, she has that melanin popping, and she's up in there. And you know, when black women get into something and they know their craft, they own their craft. So she had problems with them. She had problems with these women feeling very insecure with having to compete with her being who and what she is, as dynamite as she is, for the either attentions, the recruitment of the clientele, and etc., bonuses or whatever, in comparison to them with her. And she was probably doing much better than them. Because I know personally, like, I've been in Equinox a couple of times because in that same building, the Gray Bar building, one of my attorneys that I work with works in that building. And I actually walked in there by accident one day, and I walked all the way into they have an actual bar in that gym, not drinking, but like spritzers and alkaline waters and etc. And I went up to the bar because I needed to get directions to get up into the penthouses for different offices, because that building is really something else. You have to check it out if you ever come to New York, right? It has like a museum in the lobby, and then it has like all these floors of professional buildings, and then the more Esquire, the old law firms are, they're way up in the penthouse, like literally glass offices that oversee the city. It's beautiful shit. So anyway, I got lost. I needed to get directions, and that's how I wandered off into that gym by accident. But when I was in there, I could see like what was going on. You had like a whole lot of white women trying to get bodies like black women, and you had other women in there just getting strong, maybe for competition. And then you had all these beautifully bronzed black women walking around with big asses, small waists, big titties, and banging legs. And I seen guys working out but staring at all the black women walking around. So I'm like, okay, now I understand what was going on with Miss Europe. So anyway, because we all know about these things that happen in New York, but This is like everyday shit down here. So Miss Europe's situation didn't infatuate me because it's common. It happens a lot down here. And for her to be talking about like we don't sue and all we do is get on here and complain on YouTube and etc. She's speaking from her own experience and nothing further. She's not actually speaking about or even in knowing of what is really going on with people in their different lives. Because here in New York City, that is a common practice for us to sue our employers and to win big or win small. And you know it's a common practice for just everyday people to sue because I had told you about me suing my neighbor for her dog biting my dog in the neck. Remember that? So, me personally, I have literally sued like 3 or 4 of my employers. I didn't win as much as Miss Europe did, but I won a good amount. And one of the lawsuits, I guess if you're privy to LexisNexis, which is like the legal database, you can read about one of my lawsuits because it was the first one I ever had. And it was the LAPD, my mind is crazy, NYPD versus the LOA, the Latino Officers Association. Now, let me explain. It's the NYPD, New York Police Department versus the Latino Officers Association. Now, it wasn't Latino officers suing. It was just the fraternity that I belonged to because there was no black fraternity that actually had the heart and the balls to fight NYPD the way the Hispanic Association did. And it wasn't a Hispanic association, blacks, Hispanics, everybody could join it because it was a fraternity of the police department, which is why I joined it. I also had joined the black fraternity for the police department called the Guardians. But again, they didn't have as much fight and pushback as LOA did. So going with LOA, I got more with them than with the black organization, only in regards to suing the city. Don't get it twisted. Don't think that because I'm saying this that the black fraternity was completely useless, because they were not. But they were afraid, like a lot of black people are, to challenge the white man. The Hispanic organization was not, and they fought and fought and fought until we fucking won. So for her to keep saying like this is something we don't do, it is not true. It depends on where you are, who you are, and where you're from, how the laws affect you for your employment, labor laws, and etc. where you're from. And that's the kind of things that she either doesn't know or she's not talking about when it comes to people, when she makes blanketed statements like we don't sue enough and we come on complaining, crying, and whining on YouTube, and etc. In New York City, you can do a lot here as a poor person. And if you have the courage and the know-how or the savvy to get on YouTube and find out the steps to go about doing things, you can sue every employer you ever worked for. You can also get aided by the state, aided by free legal services from the city, and you can even call in the federal government to assist you when other people treat you like we're not interested in what you're talking about. So those are the things that she honestly doesn't understand about New York City, because she doesn't know anything about here, but she tries to pretend like she does. So anyway, people sue all the time. If you wanted to verify what I mean and understand, all you would have to do is try to get as much public information access from EEOC, which is the federal level of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for New York State, and you would see all the lawsuits pending for everyday New York City employees suing their employer. If you go to the website and try to access as much free information or public information as you can for the New York State Division of Human Rights, you will see the same thing. Tons, you may even see me there because I have sued plenty of my fucking employers through the state. You will see tons of everyday people, from civil servants, private to nonprofits to entrepreneurs, suing their employers. Even in certain cases where people have insurance, they're allowed to sue themselves in order to not pay such high insurance fees for whatever is going on. So you will see all of that. In addition to that, you will see many lawsuits like the lawsuit that I have pending right now. Actually, I have two of them pending because I have a workers' comp injury. So not only am I suing my employer currently, I'm also suing the individual person who hit me with their truck. So, and I have two law firms working with me. So when she's talking about how we don't typically do this, she's tired of us complaining and we need to do more suing, she needs to be more aware of the fact that there are plenty of black people in several different locations suing their employers, suing their neighbors like me, and suing everybody else that infringes upon our rights. But because she doesn't see it in whatever world she lives in or wherever she lives, right, on a regular or enough for her to understand it, she makes statements that are not true and that really do not reflect or depict the lives of certain black women and clumps of black people in our collective, right? So I just wanted to bring that out. And also I wanted to say that just because Miss Europe, right, got an award of however many millions, another thing about New York State, if the person, the debtor, is not able to pay what the judge has rendered in the decision, there are several more court dates that this Miss Europe will have to go through in order to be given some, if not all, of the money she was awarded by the judge. Okay? So that's another thing you need to know about this place. Just because the judge said you're entitled to get a certain amount of money does not mean you're going to automatically get it. There are also loopholes in the state where they don't have to pay you exactly everything that you're supposed to get. There's also taxes. There's a lot of shit that goes on with that. So I'm glad she won, but in telling stories and then just talking recklessly about people, you need to know in locations and cities, you need to know what you're talking about. So may I suggest, if you guys really want to know something about New York City, please ask me the question and let me answer it for you, because I have worked for the state and the city of this, the government of this city for years. Okay? I've never had a federal position with the state, but I've worked for the state many years and worked for the city many years and worked privately as well. So there's not a lot that I don't know about how the city works, where to go to resolve issues, etc., etc. Even though I've been telling black women who live in New York City or New York State that are not aware of where to go and how to get information, the first place you should always go to is 311 and the website. There you will be able to find every agency, right, that is a municipality of this city, how it works, what it offers, the services it offers, and how they can help you or service you. So I just wanted to put that out there because I'm like, here she go again talking craziness. She keeps trying to make New York City whatever imaginary place she has in her head. That's not what New York City is. White people going to be white people no matter where they are in this world. The same white people that act like damn fools down south, they act like goddamn fools in New York City too. The only difference is here, the black people will not hesitate to put a foot in that ass the way they will hesitate down south. That's the only difference. And the white people up here know it. So whenever it comes to that, both parties know how far the other people will go. And unless both of them want to get arrested that day, they get arrested. Or they say what they got to say and one goes that way and the other one goes that way. Because white people in New York City know black people are not afraid of them and they're not going to cower to them for any reason. Period. So when she's doing all that talking and comparing and doing the comparison about the different places and how people are, she needs to stop doing that because she doesn't know what she's talking about. at all. And when black people are up in their feelings and high in their emotions, like a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, when all that shit kicked off with the police, when they were doing that, I don't know, memoir or whatever the fuck it was, memorial for Floyd being killed, which they should not have been doing that in New York City. Who they should have been doing a memorial for should have been Eric Gardner, because that is our person who was killed in Staten Island by the police right in front of us on television. So why New Yorkers keep going hard for people that are not from our state and fighting with cops and going crazy about shit that doesn't concern us is beyond me. But if they want to fight cops, you need to fight cops for New York City and New York State victims, not from other states. You need to get that correct, okay? Because you got more than enough victims right here that get taken out by police, and you don't need to be adopting people from other states. You really don't. It's crazy how you can have all these people down here fighting for Floyd. He's not from here, but not one mention of Eric Garner. What the hell is wrong with y'all? But anyway, that's another thing for another day. But she needs to just stop with the fantasies about New York City. If she wants to come and be shown New York City, she needs to reach out to me, and I'll let her know where to stay for a great time. And if she wants me to show her how the city really works and where the people live and how they do things, I have no problem with that. But that fantasy that she has about here is not where it's at. And again, if you want to know how things are, ask people that actually live here and who are not like people that are just trying to play into your fantasy or either your hate or your love for the city, but who's going to be very honest about the situation here. I can tell you this city is a wonderful place to live, especially if you want to experience like always having something to do, always being able to live out your dreams no matter what they are. Even if you're poor, you could live like a superstar as long as you do the right things. And if you want to experience life here just because you've always heard about it or was curious about it, there's nothing stopping you. And I have told you guys more than enough times how to do it. You got to go on the New York State website. If you're interested in moving upstate, you would go on to New York State's individual counties up there and put in for housing, right? If you're interested in New York City, you would go to www.nyc/housing connect. That is, or New York City, www.nyc.gov/HPD, Housing Preservation Development. And you'll find houses there through the lottery, put in for waiting lists, apply for buildings that they haven't constructed yet, newly constructed buildings, whatever. And if you're just looking for like an apartment to come here to live, to stay, you could do Airbnb for long leasing. You could also do like Easy Street, rent.com. There's so many things in New York City that if you just plug into our website, you can find so many places. Like Trulia is a good one. Trulia, I use that when I want to move. Trulia, what's the other one down here that's really good? Trulia, Realtor, that's another one. Like all those things work to show you what is really truly going on in New York, how much apartments are going for in particular areas, what's happening in that whole market. That's where you would look. So all that nonsense about trying to make Manhattan the shining point of New York City, that's for people who are truly tourists and don't know shit about New York City. Because to be truthfully honest, the most happening borough, even though I can't stand that fucking borough, when you come to New York City is Brooklyn. I'm going to be straight honest. When you want to see all the things, you want to have a good fucking time, you want to eat good, you want to dance, you want to drink, you want to see performances, you go into Brooklyn, okay? With the everyday New Yorkers you want to have real like fun and shit, like you going to Brooklyn. If you know people, sorry, and you're into culture, and you're into forestry, and you're into like college performances, low budget performances, you coming to Queens, okay? This is a completely almost residential borough. Like we have very few projects, we have very few situations where people just allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. This borough is very structured in the sense that it has industrial areas, huge parks, business areas like a Mother Hopper, and residential. Like it is seriously zoned out. And they did that on purpose because they want to keep it a place where people that are foreign with money come to continue to keep their money and put it into New York City. When you come and you're one of these people that temporarily will stay here, you're going to college, you may have just wanted to come here to become an artist, or you want to perform on Broadway, and you just mesmerized with the city and you don't really want to be a real New Yorker, you go to Manhattan. That is the pretentious borough that people go to when they really don't want to be a real New Yorker. When you want to play at being a New Yorker, you go live in Manhattan. But when you want to really be a New Yorker, you live in all the other four boroughs. And if you want to get as grimy can get, you're going to live in Brooklyn or you're going to live in the Bronx. And then you will experience everything New York City has to offer, because those people are crazier. They're crazy, okay? Really, they really are. But they personify the epitome of New York City, the good and the bad. So that's the reality of it. But if you are a fake person, a pretentious person, trying to perpetrate a fraud, like you got money, or you're just so classy, you're such an elitist, egregious, you want to be a bourgeoisie, you're going to live in Manhattan. And you're going to live in specific parts of Manhattan. Because Spanish Harlem, you're not going to want to fuck with. Regular Harlem, you're not going to want to fuck with. Chinatown, you're not going to want to fuck with. You know, Little Italy, you're not going to want to fuck with any of those places. Because those are real New Yorkers. But if you want to pretend to be like the white people you see on Sex and the City and shit like that, then you're going to fuck with Lower Manhattan. And you're not going to want to go past like 100 and... do you have white people up on 125th Street? Not really. So you're not even going to want to come close to 125th Street. I would say maybe 95th Street would be the highest they go. And then they're too scary themselves to venture into New York. Whatever. So she don't know what she's talking about. But in any neighborhood you live in, there's no such thing as full out segregation in New York City. Never has been, never will. Because I'll tell you why. Not because the people are demanding it, but it's because you got to remember, New York City is a place with a lot of old fucking buildings, right? So you have people here in the city who still live in buildings that were built during World War I and World War II that are rent controlled. Meaning you have people who live in New York City whose grandparents and great-grandparents own those apartments, and they just keep passing it down from family member to family member, and these people are paying like the cheapest rent in New York City known to man. And then you have the people like me that live in luxury apartments that are part of the rent stabilized society or community, where we have a state agency that regulates the apartments we live in to make sure our apartments do not become increasingly ridiculous in order to live. We do have market value, but that is for the new people that come into the building. For the old timers like myself, we get an extra cushion because our rent doesn't go but so high. And even though the new people come in and their rent is somewhat capped as well, their rent is still significantly higher than a lot of ours that have been here for 10 years or more. So that is the reason why. Oh, I forgot Mitchell Lama too. Mitchell Lama in the projects are two other entities that allow people of New York to live all over New York City based off of their income. If you live in the projects, it is not true that everybody's rent is $2. That is a fucking lie. The project, your rent is based off of 30% of your income. So you have people living in the projects who make $50 a week, who are unemployed, because in the projects you are allowed to have a situation where you have no rent depending on your circumstances. That is a real thing here in New York City. And then you have people that live in the projects who make almost $100,000. They work for the city, they work for the state, and and every project in New York City is not a piece of shit. Don't ever think that either, okay? And the projects here are broken up into different tiers of people. Like, we have projects in New York City that are only for the elderly. No young people, only old people live there. Then we have projects that are mostly for people with disabilities, have AIDS and HIV and other terminal illnesses, right? And those apartments usually are covered under a program in New York State called HASA, HASA. And then we have, with those people, grouped with the apartments and projects that are assigned to them only, are people that have extreme, like, mental health conditions that are managed by organizations and associations that have been deemed their ad litem. That's a legal term for when the court has to appoint a legal guardian for you because you are not within your right mind. In order to conduct your own legal affairs, you need assistance. And they have those people living in the projects too. Some of them are young, some of them are middle-aged, some of them are very, very old, dementia, etc. Okay? And then you have Mitchell Lama, which is another way that people live and get apartments in New York City, where these are government-issued apartments for mostly anybody, but most people who work for the city and state get these apartments. The list is very long. Apartments become available like very rarely because when people get those apartments, they almost never leave, right? And these are apartments that are furnished by the state. Like, the state owns these apartments. So when you make whatever amount of money you make determines your rent. So that is, when I explained all that to you, the demographics of how that socioeconomics there is working about renting in New York City is the main reason why you would never have segregated neighborhoods in New York City. Because it's all about the money you make. If you make the right amount of money, you can live anywhere. And the other thing about down here is, even though every now and then we will have like a landlord that wants to be a jerk and, you know, play housing discrimination against the renter, we have very strong housing discrimination laws. Very strong. You can get a landlord's property taken from them if you are successfully able to prove that this person has done that to more than a few people. That's how strong the laws are here. So that also is another reason why what she's talking about, because she don't know, because she don't live here and don't know what she's talking about, is one of the main reasons why things are not going to be segregated. It's just not. And people, believe me, because it's in New York City, there are people who will literally go to buildings and know that this building is predominantly Jewish, predominantly white, predominantly black, predominantly whatever, and be those type of people and put in an application just to fucking sue the owner or cause a problem for these people, because that's just how New Yorkers are. And rightfully so, because no place should be segregated or specifically for one person, because that's the law here entitles everyone to be able to live in any neighborhood, which is why we always have rallies and people losing their mind and suing the city about the homeless people, because property owners and people who have money They never want the homeless people to come into their neighborhoods. But in this city, they have laws for right to housing, which is why this is a state that the landlord tenant laws go in favor of the tenant. So this is why you always have all this civil unrest and crazy shit going on here with the city's management and administration, because everybody here has a right to housing. We have housing coalitions and etc. So again, more of why she should stop talking like out of her mouth, trying to make it seem like she knows what she's talking about and that she's that informed about. I don't know why she keeps talking about New York City like that. She doesn't know what she's talking about. But anyway, I hope I explained that for you, whether you asked for the clarity or not. I think I owed it to you, because I don't know why people do that. What you see on television about New York City is not how New York City is. This is not a city that caters to fucking white people just because they got a little money. It is not. Because there are too many poor people of color. And once we get fucking upset, we will shut this fucking city down. We've done it many times before, which is why all these people always walk a fine line in dealing with the issues of New York City. Because they know if you fuck around too much, you will never hold public office in New York City again. Ask our former mayor de Blasio. He has not yet been successful in trying to get into any other office because of all this fuckery that he did while he was mayor. So when she's talking about New York City, just chalk it up to somebody with a very colorful imagination. You want to know something, ask me, because I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to be like most of these people on here lying about the borough and how people interact with each other like that Nathaniel dude. That motherfucker lies about everything New York City. And you understand why, because he's a black dude who's ugly, funny looking, and he's like the rest of these black males. He's a colorist. He cares about light skin. He has a problem with dark skin. So he's going to do everything he can to keep himself favorable in the eyes of women who are non-black. So this is what he does. And light-skinned women who look like Cerebral, because, he thinks she's attractive. Whatever. But that is the honesty of all of that. Okay? So good luck to Miss Europe. I hope that she actually gets every dime of that decision, because she deserves it. Because take it from me, in New York City, it is difficult to work with jealous white women. It is difficult to work with jealous Hispanic women. I am right now still trying to make a decision of whether or not I'm going to bring to the mayor's attention this Hispanic woman that did not hire me for a position I was more than qualified just because I did not speak Spanish. Now, unbeknownst to her, I can speak Spanish, but I don't like to speak Spanish because I don't respect the language. That's just me, right? But she still should not be doing that. She still should not be discriminating against black women because she's trying to make it seem like, you know how all these people do. They come to America. They don't know the history of America. So whenever it's a black person, they think, oh, you speak English and you only speak English only. And they don't know the history of America, and they don't know that there are black people all over America that speak 2 and 3 languages. But they don't tell you because they like you to think we're stupid. So that you say shit in front of us and we know, and we just look at you and we use stuff to our advantage. Like, it is what it is. Like, I sit around people, I never tell people I can speak French. I never tell people I can speak Spanish if I really want to, because you got to remember, throughout the American history, Spaniards colonized America too. And every place that my people came from, those people were there. To this day, you have black women in Louisiana that speak Spanish, English, and French. And they have a certain like weird ass patois that the Cajun people speak that combines all 3 of them. Plus like an Indian language or something like that. I forget what it's called. But this is real. Okay? But it's good when people think that you're stupid because they expose them true selves to you when they think you don't know any better. But she's still in this state. You're not allowed to deny people employment because they don't speak any other language besides English. And the fact that more than likely, if we look up her record of hiring and her employees, I could almost guarantee you she will have 3 times more Hispanic employees than anybody else. Because I told you how they do here. When these Hispanic people get into any type of position of power, the first thing they do is discriminate against black people. That's the first thing they do. So I'm still trying to make my decision, but more than likely, a little bit down the line, I will tell the mayor about this woman because she needs to be exposed. Because you know what the crazy part was? The black woman, she hired me, right? And the Hispanic woman that was hosting the whole event, right, for the city, doing what she has to do. She was the one who told me, after I spoke to the union guy, she's like, I don't know why she did that. She wasn't supposed to do that. And I said, it's no problem. I didn't want to tell her. I know exactly why she did that. Because she's anti-black, and because I'm a black woman, she wanted to try to make sure I did not have an opportunity doing that position. She didn't care if I got one of the other positions. She didn't want me to have that position because she preferred a Hispanic woman to get it. And that's all it was. So there's your reality about New York City, okay? If you come here, you know that your job will be, if you have issues with employers, you will be suing them. You will be reporting them to all 3 levels of branches of government in this state in order to make sure that the next black woman behind you or whoever else it is does not get discriminated against and not given an opportunity of employment just because this president's fucking Hispanic didn't want to give it to you. And it's usually them. It's usually them all the time. Outside of the white people who normally are damn fools on a regular, the one after the white people is the Hispanic person. So there you go. That's life and the reality of New York City with lawsuits. I have 3 pending right now myself personally. 2 for my job and 1 for my neighbor who her dog bit mine and she's going to pay for that shit. But because COVID backlogged all of the court cases, they literally told me when I put the paperwork in and I made that video, I don't know how long ago in the summertime or whenever it was, I was telling y'all about it the day I had came back from the courthouse. They did tell me that it would probably take a year before I would get a court date because they were that backed up. And if you look at the articles about the courts here and the backlogs on every court, family court, criminal court, civil court, you're going to see this place is really backed up because these courts took full advantage of not going to work during COVID. And they have so many cases backlogged and so many people's lives put on suspension. It is crazy. But that's the real gist of what's going on here in New York City. So if you ever have any questions, put it in the comments and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can and explain it to you the right way. Night, y'all.